Desmond Thomas Doss was born on February 7, 1919, in Lynchburg, Virginia, into a working-class family during the hardships of the Great Depression. His father, William Doss, was a carpenter and World War I veteran. His mother, Bertha, was a devout Seventh-day Adventist. From her, Desmond inherited the faith that would shape every decision in his life. Growing up, Desmond was quiet, gentle, and deeply religious. The Ten Commandments, particularly "Thou shalt not kill," made a profound impression on him. Another formative influence was a family illustration of the Sermon on the Mount that hung in their home, depicting Christ's command to love one's enemies. These teachings cemented his belief in nonviolence. That belief was tested early. As a child, he witnessed his father's violent temper, often fueled by alcohol. One incident nearly ended in tragedy when William threatened his family with a gun, an event that shook Desmond deeply. It left him with an aversion not just to violence but to weapons themselves. When the United States entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Doss faced a moral dilemma. Like many young men of his generation, he felt the call to serve his country. Yet his religious convictions forbade him from carrying a weapon or taking a life. To most, this would mean avoiding military service altogether. For Desmond, it meant something different. He would serve, but he would do so as a combat medic, saving lives rather than taking them. In April 1942, Desmond enlisted in the U.S. Army. From the very start, his refusal to bear arms made him a target of ridicule and abuse. Fellow soldiers called him a coward and a misfit, unable to understand how a man could enter war without a rifle. Some mocked his faith, others tried to pressure him into carrying a weapon, and a few even threatened him. Officers questioned whether he belonged in the army at all. But Desmond's resolve was unshakable. He endured harassment with patience, quietly demonstrating his worth through relentless effort and devotion to his duties. He trained as a medic, mastering the skills of battlefield first aid, stopping bleeding, treating shock, carrying wounded under fire. While others drilled with rifles, Doss trained with bandages, stretchers, and his Bible. By 1944, he was assigned to the 77th Infantry Division, a unit preparing for the Pacific campaigns. His reputation as a gentle, steadfast man of faith began to spread. Though many still doubted him, his quiet determination won over some of his comrades. They saw that while he would not pick up a weapon, he never hesitated to help others, whether in training accidents or day-to-day struggles. Desmond's moment of truth would come in the spring of 1945, during one of the bloodiest battles of the Pacific, the struggle for Okinawa. There, amid the chaos of artillery, machine guns, and bayonet charges, this quiet medic would display a courage that astonished even the hardest soldiers. His refusal to kill would not make him weak, it would make him unforgettable. By the spring of 1945, the Pacific War was reaching its climax. The island of Okinawa, only 350 miles from mainland Japan, was seen as the final stepping stone before an invasion of the Japanese home islands. The battle to seize it would become the largest amphibious assault of the Pacific theater, and one of the bloodiest. The 77th Infantry Division, to which Desmond Doss belonged, landed on Okinawa in late April. Their objective was to seize the southern part of the island, a region of ridges, caves, and fortified positions defended by veteran Japanese troops of the 32nd Army. These defenders, numbering more than 100,000, were dug into the island's limestone ridges, turning them into natural fortresses. Every advance would be contested inch by inch. The key obstacle before the 77th was the Maeda Escarpment, a jagged cliff about 400 feet high. Its sheer face and heavily fortified crest made it nearly impregnable. American troops dubbed it Hacksaw Ridge, a name that would forever be associated with Desmond Doss. To reach the top, soldiers had to climb nets and ropes hung against the cliff face while under fire. Once at the top, they faced interlocking Japanese machine gun nests, mortars, and hidden tunnels that allowed the enemy to vanish and reappear at will. Veterans described it as a nightmare battlefield, exposed, confusing, and deadly. On May 5, 1945, Doss's battalion was ordered to scale Hacksaw Ridge and assault the Japanese defenses. From the beginning, the attack was met with devastating fire. Mortars rained down as the men scrambled up the ropes, machine guns cut across the top, mowing down entire squads before they could gain a foothold. Bodies slid back down the nets, and the escarpment became choked with the dead and wounded. Amid the chaos, Desmond Doss moved tirelessly. While others fired their rifles, he carried only his medic's bag and his Bible. He crawled forward under fire to reach the wounded, dragging them to cover, binding their wounds, and whispering prayers as he worked. When casualties mounted, he refused to retreat. One soldier later recalled, "Every time I turned around, there was Doss. He never carried a gun, but he carried the wounded. He was like an angel out there, moving through the smoke." That day, the battalion suffered staggering losses. Many were forced to withdraw, sliding or climbing down the cliff to regroup. But Desmond Doss remained on top, alone, with dozens of wounded men lying helpless under Japanese guns. His choice was clear: leave them to die, or try to bring them down one by one. Doss chose the latter. Alone on the escarpment, he dragged the wounded to the cliff edge, fashioned a rope sling, and lowered them down to safety. Each time, he prayed the same words: "Lord, please help me get one more." For hours he repeated this cycle: crawl into danger, find a wounded comrade, patch him up, drag him to the edge, and lower him down. The rope burned his hands, and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, but he refused to stop. By the end of the night, Doss had saved an estimated 75 men. Accounts differ on the exact number. Doss himself humbly claimed fewer, but his comrades insisted it was no less than that. Each man lowered down owed his life to the medic who refused to carry a weapon yet braved enemy fire again and again. The night Desmond Doss rescued roughly 75 men on Hacksaw Ridge became the most famous episode of his service, but it was not an isolated act of courage. Over the following days of the Battle of Okinawa, Doss repeatedly risked his life in ways that astonished even hardened combat veterans. When the battalion attacked again, the Japanese unleashed artillery, mortars, and machine guns with relentless fury. Casualties mounted by the minute. Once more, Doss advanced with his medic bag, weaving across open ground where no one else dared to move. He crawled through mud and shell craters, often dragging the wounded while enemy fire stitched the earth around him. One day, his unit was caught in a devastating counterattack. Explosions ripped through their lines, leaving many men bleeding in no man's land. Without hesitation, Doss sprinted forward, ignoring shouts to take cover. He moved from man to man, treating wounds, whispering encouragement, and hauling the injured back. A grenade exploded nearby, wounding him in the legs with shrapnel. Instead of calling for evacuation, he bound his own wounds and continued working. Hours later, as he helped another soldier to safety, a sniper's bullet struck his arm, shattering bone. Doss improvised a splint, cradled his useless arm against his chest, and pressed on. Finally, when a mortar blast hurled him into the air and shredded his hip, he could go no further. Yet even then, he refused evacuation until he had tended to others around him. Only when there was no one else in immediate need did he allow himself to be carried off the line. His selflessness left an indelible impression on the men of the 77th Infantry Division. Soldiers who had once mocked him for refusing to carry a rifle now swore by him. They called him the bravest man they had ever known. One veteran later remarked, "He was one of the smallest guys out there, but he had the biggest guts of anybody. We all owed him our lives." Doss's courage came not from aggression but from conviction. He saw his role not as taking lives but as preserving them. In doing so, he embodied a different kind of warrior spirit, one that valued compassion as much as courage. His refusal to compromise his beliefs, even under fire, earned him not only respect but awe. By the end of the Okinawa campaign, Desmond Doss had treated or rescued dozens upon dozens of wounded soldiers under fire. His body bore the scars of multiple wounds, yet his faith and determination remained unbroken. The battle had pushed him to the limit physically and spiritually, but he had never abandoned his principles: no weapon, no killing, only saving. For his actions, the army recognized him as one of the most extraordinary soldiers of the war. But the official honors would come later. For now, Doss was evacuated from Okinawa, his war over, his body broken but his spirit intact. The men he saved never forgot him, nor the image of the quiet medic who prayed for one more and made good on that prayer, again and again. When Desmond Doss was finally evacuated from Okinawa in May 1945, his body bore multiple wounds, shrapnel scars, a shattered arm, and a fractured hip from the mortar blast. He spent months in military hospitals recovering, his slight frame weakened but his spirit unbroken. Word of his extraordinary heroism had already spread throughout the army. Commanders, chaplains, and fellow soldiers filed reports attesting to his courage on Hacksaw Ridge and beyond. On October 12, 1945, Desmond Doss was invited to the White House to receive the Medal of Honor from President Harry S. Truman. Standing before him, Truman reportedly said, "I'm proud of you. You really deserve this. I consider this a greater honor than being president." Doss was the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the Medal of Honor. His official citation credited him with saving 75 men on Okinawa, though Doss himself insisted the number was lower. He never boasted, always deflecting praise to God and to the men he served beside. Life after the war was not easy. Doss's injuries left him with lifelong disabilities. His left arm remained permanently crippled, and years later he would lose a lung to tuberculosis contracted during his service. Despite these hardships, he lived quietly, working as a carpenter and raising a family. Fame never interested him. He preferred a humble life of service, faith, and community. Yet his story continued to inspire. Books and documentaries told of the medic who went to war without a weapon. His comrades never tired of recounting how he had risked his life again and again for them. To many, he symbolized a rare form of courage, not the courage to kill, but the courage to save. Doss lived until March 23, 2006, passing away at the age of 87. By then, his legacy had grown far beyond the military. Schools and hospitals were named in his honor. In 2016, his story reached millions through the film Hacksaw Ridge, which dramatized his heroism on Okinawa. While the film took some liberties, it introduced a new generation to the remarkable truth that one man's faith and determination could save dozens of lives under the most hellish conditions imaginable. For the 77th Infantry Division, Doss's name became synonymous with valor. For the Army, he remained proof that heroism could come in many forms. For America, he was a reminder that conviction and compassion are as powerful as any weapon. Today, visitors to Okinawa can stand at the Maeda Escarpment and gaze up at the cliff where Doss lowered man after man to safety. It is a place forever marked by sacrifice and courage. Desmond Doss once explained his actions in the simplest of terms. "I couldn't picture myself with a gun, killing people. I wanted to be like Christ and save life instead of taking it." And in doing so, he showed that courage does not always come from the barrel of a rifle. Sometimes it comes from the steady hands of a medic, a whispered prayer, and the determination to save just one more.